Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe Acharei Moshe b'nei Aaron b'korvosam lifnei Hashem vayamusu. So if you remember in Parsha Shmini, the sons of Aaron died, and then you have various commands. The Torah went off on Tazria and Metzora, and the Torah resumes. Last week we had a double header. Then the Torah resumes, and it goes, Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe. Hashem speaks to Moshe after the death of the two sons of Aaron, b'korvosam lifnei Hashem vayamusu. Now, the first question you have to deal with here is page 636. Page 636. First question we have to deal with here is, why does it say the two sons of Aaron? We know how many there were. Why is it the two sons of Aaron? And
because the other two just died.
What's that?
Because the other two just died.
No, we're talking about these two. We're talking after the death of the two sons of Aaron. It could have just said after the death of the sons of Aaron. We know how many there were.
I thought he was more.
He does, but it says over here, Hashem spoke to Moshe after the death of the two sons of Aaron. We're talking about the two that died.
Oh.
So why does he have to say the two that died? Not my question, it's the Ohr Chaim's question. Why does it say, could have just said after the death of the sons of Aaron? We know that the sons of Aaron died. It was 2 parshas ago. That's what the Ohr Chaim asks. So the Ohr Chaim answers that, remember we had mentioned that one of their flaws is they didn't consult with each other, which means that theoretically, had either one of them done what they did and brought this Ketores and gone into the Holy of Holies, it could be they wouldn't have died. What happened was, as a result of not consulting with each other, they both ended up in the Kodesh HaKadoshim at the same time. And we're going to see later in this parsha that when Hashem gives, we're going to see that it's going to talk about the Yom Kippur service. Aaron is told that he's going to go, Moshe is going to tell Aaron from the command of Hashem that he's going to go into the Holy of Holies. And then the Torah emphasizes, and no one should be in the Holy of Holies with Aaron when he goes in there. That means there's one per customer. It's like a phone booth. It's one per customer. You don't go into, I don't know if you guys ever seen a phone booth. They don't have the phone booths nowadays. But in the old days, they used to have phone booths. And they were very small phone booths. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine was here in Israel. This is one of those only in Israel stories. This was back in the day when you had public phones. So he goes into the phone booth, and it starts drizzling outside. He's talking on the phone, and this other guy, an older guy, enters the phone booth with him. So he says to him, "Slichani, but telephone." He says, "Can't get any right." He says, "Yeah, I see." He goes, "No, I mean, it's a private phone call." He goes, "What are you, the Shabak?" You got a lot of nerve telling me to get out of your phone booth. so that's like in Israel. If anybody ever notice everybody ever stumbles. If somebody falls on the sidewalk, somebody always says lat. You ever see people say that lat? Lat doesn't help once you're down on the ground. Lat. Tell me lat before I went down, not after I went down. Once I'm on the ground, it's very lat already. Lat. So the flaw over here is it's emphasizing Shnei B'nei Aaron, that the two of them ended up in the Holy of Holies at the same time, which according to the Ohr Chaim, had they not ended up there at the same time, they wouldn't have died. And that's, again, a consequence of not having been willing to consult with each other, which we spoke about. Yeah, Lenny, go ahead.
So it's not the drunkenness?
So according to the Ohr Chaim, Lenny's asking, what about all the other things that it says, drunkenness, and they were more. The Ohr Chaim is learning that this was the main problem. They seem to be learning this is the main problem. Okay. But then it says, B'korvosam. I'm going to tell you a very important concept here. It says, B'korvosam lifnei Hashem vayamusu. So the Ohr Chaim says, B'korvosam lifnei Hashem means they were so close to Hashem. We have a concept of the Gemara uses an expression, HaKadosh Baruch Hu medakdekim tzadikim kechut hasayra. HaKadosh Baruch Hu holds tzadikim to a hair's breadth. Holds tzadikim to a hair's breadth. And what that means is, what it sounds like it means, is that, your average happy-go-lucky Jew, HaKadosh Baruch Hu cuts us a little bit of slack. A tzaddik, if he steps out of line even a little bit, in the Ohr Chaim is saying they were so close to God, none of them were so close to God, that they're being held for this Avera to a very high exacting standard. That's how the Ohr Chaim hears the word Korvosam. Korvosam doesn't just mean physical proximity, when they came close to God by going into the Holy of Holies. But Korvosam means because of their spiritual level, that they're close to God. Okay. Now, there's a very interesting idea here that Rav Dessler says. A fascinating idea, and it's so if you think about it, you'll see that it's just so accurate. Physical vision is limited. When you see something with your eyes, you can't imagine what somebody's seeing with the binoculars or with a telescope. You can't even imagine it. You're seeing up to a certain point. This guy's seeing all the way into whatever he's seeing, and it's enlarged and whatever else it is. You go, if you've ever been at a concert, not that I have been, but I have. So you need binoculars, or a sporting event, you need binoculars. What you see without the binoculars and what you see with the binoculars is two different things. Completely different things. You can see with the binoculars, you can see the details of the guy's face, and here you basically see something. So in the Ruchni realm, it's the same thing. And what Rav Dessler says is somebody, for example, he divides people in the world. There are two people. The world's divided into two types of people. What are they? Jews and Goyim. That's one type of division. And listen, we say it all the time, Asher B'charbanu, and we make it Havdalah. Right? We make Havdalah, Ivdilanu, meaning that we're different than all the rest of the nations. That is true. And there's also a division called male and female. And the Gemara says women. It says Noshim am bifnei atzmam. Women are a separate nation. That's what the Gemara says. You think it's me. It's not me. I'm telling you, it's not me. The Gemara says, Noshim am bifnei atzman. And I was once thinking about this. Because remember, anything the Gemara says, if they're using an expression, they could have just said women. They could have just said women are different than men. They could have said women are from Mars, men are from Venus, women are from Venus, men are from Mars. They could have said that also. It says women are a different nation. I was thinking about that expression. What is the most distinguishing feature of two nations? What's the most distinguishing feature between two nations? What?
Language.
Exactly, language. Women speak a different language than men. It's a different language. What they say, somebody once said, it's funny, but it's not funny. If you want to understand, if you want to know what a woman means, don't listen to what she says. Look at her face, because that's when you find out what she really means. If I say to my wife, hi, I just got a phone call. They got 9 guys rented a gym. They need a 10th guy for the minions. Okay, if I go out and play some basketball on a Thursday night, can I go? Do you mind if I go? I don't mind. Yeah? Oh, really? Better look at her face. Because on the one hand, she might not mind. On the other hand, I don't mind may mean, have you ever experienced waterboarding? Right? That's what it may mean. But it's a different language. Women talk a different language than men. Okay. He divides, there are men and women, there are Jews and non-Jews. Rav Dessler divides the world into two types of people. Can we open up some doors and windows over here, gentlemen, so we get some air? Rav Dessler divides the world into givers and takers. Some people are givers and some people are takers. And some people, some of us have a little bit of both. We have 80% giver, 20% taker, or but those are two types of people. You're a giver or a taker. A taker can't, the same way that somebody physical vision is limited, your ruchni vision is limited too. A taker can't fathom what's going on in the mind of a giver. If you take somebody who is a giver, who's thinking about other people, who's a Baal Chesed, who's always doing for other people, you take a frum Jew, and then you take a politician, cannot fathom why would somebody give to other people where there's nothing in it for him. He can't. No, keep it open, please. If a politician can't fathom, why would somebody possibly want to do for other people? Because the way a politician, there's one of the great Jewish activists. It was Rabbi Moshe Scherer. Zichrono Livracha. He was the head of Agudas Yisrael of America. This was a man who was very, very well connected. There are pictures of him. He had connections to presidents, the vice presidents in the halls of power. He was friends with the governor of New York. What's his name? The guy who's now accused. The guy's on trial now. Giuliani. He was good friends with Giuliani. He had him do the invocation when he became when he was the mayor at one point. He was very, very powerful, very well connected. So after he died, they asked one of the non-Jewish politicians, "What did you think of Rabbi Scherer?" So he said, "Oh, he was a very nice man, much nicer than he had to be." That's a very telling idea, because Rabbi Scherer helped people because he wanted to help people. The politician helps because if I help him, that maybe that'll make a connection or it'll help me to advance. Somebody who's a taker can't see where a giver is. You can't fathom where a giver is. Somebody who is, there's that famous book, How to Win Friends and Manipulate People. So and influence people. Sorry. The book is an excellent book. I recommend it for anybody who is socially challenged. It's a very good book. Don't raise your hand and say, "Oh, that's what you," because that would just be evidence that you're socially challenged. But the book is there. There's nothing non-Toradic about the book. The book is an excellent book. It's a very enjoyable read. There's only one problem with the book. On the cover of the book, on my volume at home, I was socially challenged till I read the book. On the cover of my book at home, it says, How to Win Friends and Influence People. The subtitle is, Now you can get ahead. Now you can get that job you want. Now you, how? By being, in other words, the whole thing is all about you, by being nice to other people because you could gain from it. So when it comes to this idea of HaKadosh Baruch Hu mendaktekim tzadikim b'chut asar, HaKadosh Baruch Hu holds tzadikim to a hair's breadth, to us it looks like a hair's breadth. Because at our level, can I speak for myself, the misstep of the tzaddik at my level, the misstep of the tzaddik looks like that was not a big deal. If Rav Chaim Kanievsky is upset and he's got, what did Rav Chaim Kanievsky said, he klopped al chet just like we did on Yom Kippur. What was Rav Chaim Kanievsky's big avera? If you ask Rav Chaim Kanievsky, so instead of getting up at 1 o'clock in the morning and learning straight through after 2 hours sleep, he actually overslept by 10. He only got 2 hours. He got 2 hours and 10 minutes sleep. And it's probably he cried copious tears on Yom Kippur for that. To me, it doesn't look like a big deal. To him, it looks like it is a big deal. To him, it's not a hair's breadth. So when the Torah says that Hashem holds tzaddikim to a very exacting standard, a hair's breadth, that means from our perspective, it looks like a hair's breadth. From the tzaddik's perspective, it looks like a major, major flaw. Because he's at that level that to him it's a major flaw. So another v'naviu bekorvosam lifnei Hashem bayamusu, at their level, because of their proximity to God, that's why they're held to them. It was a major misstep. To us, it was like, hey, listen, they didn't do something so terrible. At our level, the way we're looking at it, that's what the Ohr Chaim says. Okay. Number three. You ever been at a beach that says no swimming? If there's no swimming or no swimming without lifeguards, have you ever gone in?
Of course.
Yeah, there you go. It didn't take you long. Didn't take you long to answer that question. Why? It's a hot day. The water's blue. Not too many sharks visible at the surface. Let's go in. Right? Why? Because it's tempting. It's tempting. The warning over here. Look at Pasuk. Look what Hashem says. Look at Rashi. It's where's Rashi here? Here, take a look at it. Ma Talmud, first Rashi. Ma Talmud Lomar. Hayir Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Moshlo Moshel. Moshe says to Aaron after the two deaths of Nadav and Avihu that he can't enter. The next pasuk says that he can't enter the holy at any time he wants. So Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, second line. Moshel, he gives an analogy. Somebody who is not well went to a doctor. Amar lo, the doctor said to him, Al tochal tzonein, don't eat cold foods. Val tishkav batachav, don't lie down in a damp area. That's what the first doctor said to him. Ba'acher v'amar lo, Al tochal tzonein, don't eat cold food. Val tishkav batachav, don't lie down in damp areas. So you don't die like so-and-so died who disregarded my orders. Zerzo yoser min harishon. The second doctor is urging him stronger than the first doctor. The second doctor, they give him a chumash over there. You got over there? Okay. The second one is urged him more strongly than the first one. He's zerzo, he put a stronger warning him. Why does Aaron need such a strong warning? That means that read the next pasuk for a second. Read the next pasuk. Vayomer Hashem, second line in the Chumash. Vayomer Hashem al Moshe, daber el Aaron achicha, v'al yovel b'chol eisel hakodesh. Aaron can't just enter the Holy of Holies anytime he wants. Mi beis la paroches, behind the curtain. El pnei hakaporetz asher al Aaron, v'lo yamus, ki be'onon eira hakaporetz. It's only when there's the cloud from the what's it called, the incense, only then could Aaron enter. Why did Moshe precede all of this with after the death of Aaron? Why did Hashem say after the death of the two sons of Aaron? He's like the doctor who says it's not enough to just say don't go in there. Don't go in there like they did so you don't die. That's a stronger warning. Somebody says if there would be a sign that says don't enter the water, why do you need a sign to not to enter the water? Because the water is very tempting. The water is very, very tempting. The desire to get into the Holy of Holies was so tempting. To get to that Kedusha was so tempting, yeah, it needs a warning. Now, what if the sign by the water says, don't enter this water because 3 people drowned yesterday and 6 drowned the day before? Then what would be? Aaron, be a little more hesitant, right? That's a little better than a sign that says, don't enter the water. That's what Akash Baruch was saying to Aaron. By the way, you know the story of the kid who goes, he dives into, there's a hotel swimming pool. Kid dives in, he starts swimming around. So the guard comes over and says, hey kid, can't you read the sign? It says, no swimming allowed. Kid learned Gemara. He says, that's not what the sign says. It says, no, swimming allowed. And you're asking me what are the benefits of Gemara, right? And there you go. So that's the We've created monsters. That's our goal. Okay. Listen. We got to. You got to survive by your instincts. That's life. As I go, your wife is cooking on Erev Shabbos, and you'd like to get into that kitchen. Right? It's tempting. Right? Yeah. There's certain places that are off limits. There's the best. Why do I want to say? I'm just confessing now. True confessions. The best chicken I ever had in my life. Best chicken by far. Nothing my wife ever made. Nothing my mother ever made. It was when I was 15 years old at camp. And my friend Milty and I used to sneak into the kitchen on Erev Shabbos where the counselor said, the cook said nobody's allowed to come in there and take Erev Shabbos chicken. And me and my friend Milty would sneak in there, grab some chicken and eat behind the white van. That was the best chicken I ever had in my life. Because there's a pasuk that says, Mayim genuvim yimtaku. The stolen waters are sweet. Right? That's why I told you, the 2 best things for a frum Jew, the 2 greatest delights. You ever had hot kugel on Erev Shabbos, hot potato kugel on Erev Shabbos? That's delicious. You know what's even better? That second piece that she doesn't want you to have. Right? That piece is unbelievable. Right? The other is when you're davening on a Monday or Thursday in shul, and right after Shemon Esrei, there's a klap. No tachanun, there's a chosin in shul. Right? There's no long tachanun, right? And everybody's you ever been there? There's a klap. Then there's always one guy who says, 1 second, who's the chosin? That's like the kid who's saying, what, no homework today? Be quiet, will you? And just give him a mazel tov and gave Vita. Let's go, Yiskadal. We're laughing. Tomorrow's Bahab.
What's that?
Bahab is where there's extra slichos. Bahab stands for Beis, Hey, Beis. Monday, Thursday, Monday. Monday, Thursday, Monday, and the month after Pesach, and the Monday, Thursday, Monday, starting the month after Sukkot, those 3 days, Monday, not only we have the long V'hurachum Tachnan, there's extra slichos for Ashkenazim. Ashkenazim do extra slichos. This is where the Sephardim get us. They do 40 on Elul. They have 40 days of slichos, so this is where they laugh at us. And we have extra slichos because during the holy celebrating during Pesach, maybe we went over the line a little bit. Maybe we drank too much or didn't drink enough or whatever the case may be. So we say some extra slichos on Monday, Thursday, Monday. So tomorrow's going to be a little bit longer. Tomorrow davening's a little bit longer. The Sephardim don't, by the way. Sephardim don't do it. I have in the past cheated and gone up to daven with the Sephardis on Bahab. Not in recent years. I've been good. Okay. Take a look at Pasuk Daled. Bizos yavo Aaron el HaKodesh, and this is how Aaron should enter El HaKodesh, page 636, 3 lines at the bottom. El HaKodesh, Bipar ben Bakar lechatos, he brings a young bull as a sin offering, V'ayil la'ola, and a ram as a burnt offering. Then it says, Ksones bad Kodesh yilbash, he wears his tunic, that's the word I'm looking for. Umichna sevad yuel besoro, uvavneit bad yachkor uvivmitznefes bad yitznov. He wears 4 garments, bigdei kodeshem, v'rochatz v'mayim es besoro uleveshab. He immerses in the mikveh and he wears these garments. Now, we know the halacha is, on Yom Kippur, the Kohen had 8 garments all year long. 4 of them were regular fabric, and 4 of them had gold inlaid in them. The choshen, and he had the tzitz that went across his head, and he had the me'il, which had the golden bells at the bottom. And so the Kohen Gadol, on Yom Kippur, when he entered the Holy of Holies, he did not wear the gold. Where did he wear the gold? Up until the Holy of Holies, in the Azara, in the main sanctuary. But he did not wear the gold when he only wore 4 garments. That's why the Torah enumerates 4 garments that he went into the Holy of Holies with on Yom Kippur. Why didn't he wear the gold?
Because it's a reminder of the golden calf.
Ein kategor nasa sanegor. Very good. It's a reminder of the gold. The prosecutor cannot become the defender. And if he's going into the Holy of Holies, so the prosecutor does not become the defender. Now the question becomes, well, if the prosecutor can't be the defender in the Holy of Holies, so why is he wearing it in the sanctuary also? In the sanctuary, he's also wearing gold, and he did the service in the sanctuary too. What's the difference between the 2 locations? One place he doesn't wear the Holy of Holies, and he doesn't wear the gold, and one place he does. The answer is, anybody got an idea?
Different spiritual worlds.
Different spiritual worlds. That's always safe. Yeah, there are different spiritual worlds. The answer is there are different roles. In the main sanctuary, people could see him. And there's a difference between correcting people, what we call giving people musar, tochacha, rebuke, and pleading on behalf of the Jewish people. When he was in the Azara, people could see him. He's wearing the gold, so people should be reminded of the sin so that they could do tshuva. Do you know that the Gemara says any suffering of the Jewish people, individually or collectively, up to this day, has some payback. Some of the suffering is a retribution for the sin of the golden calf. If a person stubs his toe, he deserves to stub his toe, because yesterday he left davening too early, but it's also because of the golden calf.
But not every Jew sinned with the golden calf.
But every Jew is the retribution. It's a good question. Not every Jew sinned. But there's retribution for all of Klal Yisrael because of the golden calf. There's retribution for everyone. All forms of suffering is still cleaning up the mess from the golden calf. You're right. That's clean. That's what the Gemara says. So the Kohen Gadol in the Azara, where people see him, he serves as a reminder of the golden calf so that people should do tshuva. But what's he doing when he goes into the Holy of Holies? I'll get to you 1 second. What's he doing when he goes into the Holy? There he's pleading on behalf of the Jewish people. When you plead on the behalf of the Jewish people, you don't he's not talking to God about how bad the Jewish people are. He's talking to God about being good to the Jewish people. When you go in to plead for good Jewish people, you don't bring in the gold. That you don't do. When you're pleading, it's like a guy in court who's accused of counterfeiting. You don't plead, you don't go up to the judge to plead for mercy with a couple of counterfeit $100 bills hanging out of your pockets. Or if you're accused of stealing jewelry, you don't go plead the judge with a bunch of ice dangling around your neck. You plead. You make sure that you look like you're poor and you're contrite and everything else. So the Kohen Gadol. You've heard of Rabbi Yoel from Satmar? He was a Satmar Rebbe. So Yoel from Satmar, and the Satmars, if you know anything about the Satmars have a very strong anti-Zionistic stance. And Rabbi Yoel from Satmar himself actually wrote a sefer. He has a whole sefer about against Zionism, secular Zionism, religious Zionism, all Zionism. Because Zionism is essentially a new religion. And there's Judaism, there's no Zionism. Israel is a mitzvah. It's not an ends, it's a means, like all other mitzvahs. Living in Israel is not an ends in and of itself. Living in Israel is a means of serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Rabbi Yoel from Satmar is known as fiercely anti-Zionistic. So somebody once said to him, look at Avram Avinu and look at yourself. What did Avram Avinu do? Avram Avinu, with the man of chesed, Avram Avinu was the paradigm of kindness in the world. Yet when he found out that the people of Sodom were going to be destroyed, what did he do? He went to bat for them. He kept pleading with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Remember, he even bargained. Give me 50 tzaddikim. What if they're 45, 40, 30? Do I hear 20, 10? Okay. And he went with that's maybe why Jews always have this habit of trying to get a bargain. Avraham Avinu, he Jewed him down. He was the first Jew. Right? What he did, we do. So Avraham Avinu is trying to bargain it down. So he said to Rabbi Yoel from Satmar, look at what Avraham Avinu, look at him and look at you. He went for the worst, most despicable people in history, and Avraham Avinu went to bat for them. And all you do is criticize the Zionists. So Rabbi Yoel from Satmar said to the guy, the Torah only reports what Avraham Avinu said to Hashem. The Torah doesn't tell us what Avraham Avinu said to the people of Sodom. I'm sure the people of Sodom said, hey, people, you got to get your act together. You can't have a situation where you're mean to guests and you chop people's legs off and stretch them in a bed and you're cruel. And the people of Sodom, the Torah doesn't say, but I'm sure Avraham Avinu said something to them. He had what to say. But when he spoke to God, he pleaded on behalf of them. Then Rabbi Yoel from Satmar said, you only know what I say to the Zionists. You don't know what I say to Hashem when I'm davening for them. That's what he said. So the Kohen Gadol is, on the one hand, the people have to see the gold. But when he goes into the Holy of Holies, then the Kohen Gadol is pleading on behalf of the Jewish people, number one. Number two, what did the Kohen Gadol plead for when he went into the Holy of Holies? What did he daven for?
Forgiveness.
What's that?
Forgiveness.
Certainly forgiveness.
Isn't he
What would you imagine the Kohen Gadol davening for the Jewish people? They should have, they should have a lot of spiritual growth, and they should learn Torah, and they should daven well, right? That's what you would imagine he davened for. What did the Gemara say he davened for? They should have rain and prosperity and parnasa and health. That's what he davened for. So the Brisker Rav, you've heard of the Brisker Rav? Okay, so Brisker Rav, one of his sons got married. So people sent him letters and telegrams. You should have lots of, you should have lots of Yiddish and Nachas, and they should grow in Torah. They should have a Torah dikafel, everything else. Finally, somebody sends him a letter, and he says, you should have health and parnasa. And he says, now this is a guy who knows how to give a bracha. We all think, you should grow, you should learn a lot of Torah. Do me a favor. Give me a bracha for money. Give me a bracha for good children. Give me a bracha for health. That's a bracha. Kohen Gadol went into the Holy of Holies, and he davened for the Jewish people. He davened for their material well-being.
Why?
Because we need material well-being. And if you have material well-being, then you grow. It's very difficult to grow as a Jew when you don't have parnasa. When people ask me, should they move to Israel? The answer is, you should move to Israel? Well, you have to take certain things into consideration. Will you have parnasa? If you don't have parnasa, you're going to be so running around trying to find a parnasa that it's going to be difficult for you to concentrate on your learning, concentrate on your davening, be nice to your wife, be nice to your children, because you're just all for tumult. That's part of ruchnius. Having parnasa doesn't mean you have to be rich, but to be comfortable, to have the mental equilibrium to be able to serve God, that's part of ruchnius, number one. Number two, there's a famous line from Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. The other guy's material needs are your spiritual needs. That means if a guy needs a meal and you feed him, his material needs, that's my spiritual need. My spiritual needs to worry about the other guy's physical needs. My spiritual needs are to worry that you have a good mattress and that you have a comfortable bed, that you have a place to stay, that you have a meal. And sometimes people are always worried about straightening out other people's tefillin. I don't know if you've ever been accosted by the tefillin patrol here. They have the tefillin patrol who will race across the base medrash to make sure that your tefillin, which are about 1/10 of a millimeter off, they'll straighten it out. There's always somebody to help you out spiritually. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter was once passing a shul, and some guy standing outside says, "Atzenter, we need a 10th man." 10th man for them. You ever hear that? Do you ever walk past the shul or shtibel and say, "Atzenter, we need a 10th man over here. Need a 10th man over here." So Yisrael Salanter said, how come you never pass by a wedding and there's a guy standing outside? We need a center. We need another guy to come in and eat. That's what you should be worried about. Worry about the other guy. Don't worry about his Amenya Hishmei Rabbah so much. And don't worry about his tzitzis. Worry about his food. Worry about his comfort. That's my growth in Ruchnius is worry about somebody else's physical comfort. Yeah, what were you going to ask?
This whole like service and this the sacrifice, does that just atone for unintentional sins or also intentional?
Good question. He wants to know if it atones for intentional sins or unintentional sins. And we're going to see a description of various forms of sacrifices that are brought. Some atone for one for the Kohanim, some for the entire Jewish people, some for bigger averas, and then on an individual level, depends what the sin is. If a person neglected a positive command, if a person transgressed a negative command, if a person made a chilul Hashem. So sometimes it could require, all it requires is tshuva, sometimes it requires tshuva and fasting on Yom Kippur, sometimes it requires that a person does tshuva Yom Kippur and a little bit of personal suffering, a little bit of discomfort in life to be an atonement, and sometimes there's certain averas where the only atonement is death itself. So those should definitely be avoided for those who want to live longer. But at the end of the day, there's a whole service over here. We're going to see. Okay, now the Torah gets into the main part that we want to talk about now. In Pasuk Zayin, the Kohen takes 2 goats and started picking up 5 lines from the top. V'lokach es shnei ha'seirim, he takes the 2 goats. Ve'amido sam lifnei Hashem Pesach Ol Moed. He takes these goats and he puts them by the entrance of the tent, Ol Moed. V'nasan Aaron al shnei ha'seirim gorolos. He draws lots. He takes these 2 goats and he's got some sort of bucket with 2 cubes in them. One of the cubes says on it La Hashem, that this goat is for Hashem, which means it's going to be brought into the Beis Hamikdash and sacrificed. Gorol echad la Hashem, v'gorol echad la Azazel. The second one says Azazel on it, and that goat is going to go off the cliff. Azazel, Rashi says, in Azazel, and I'm sure you've probably heard this at some point being used in an unfavorable context. So the top line on the Rashi, on the left column, Azazel hu har az v'koshel. Koshe. He says it's a hard, rough mountain. Tsuk gavoha, a high cliff. And they take this goat, and the goat's going to get pushed off the cliff. And then, which is probably where the expression that this really gets my goat from. And then the Aaron says, "V'hikirvarnes asera shalav agro la Hashem v'aso chatos." 4 lines from the bottom. V'hasair asher olav hagora la Azazel, the goat. There they drew lots, and it's supposed to go to Azazel. Yomad chaylif ne Hashem lechaper olav l'shalach oso Azazel hamidbara. Now, what happens? I'm skipping. I'm not going to read inside because we're short on time. Aaron takes the first goat. Eventually he's going to shecht it, and he's going to put it in the Holy of Holies. He's going to bring it as a sacrifice. The goat to Azazel, Aaron puts his hands on it, and he confesses the sins of the entire Jewish people. Then they take this goat, they give him to a certain man, which we'll see tomorrow, and they bring this guy out, they bring the goat out to a cliff, and they push the goat off the cliff. The animals' rights people would probably be up in arms about that. They probably stop doing abortions and go out to a protest. And because of the because they probably put off the abortions for a day and go out to the protest. But they'd be up in arms over this goat. Okay, the first question is, the Torah says you're not allowed to cause needless pain to living creatures. Tsar balei chayim. I mean, you're pushing a goat off a cliff. Now, how do you reconcile that with the Torah saying that you're not allowed to cause pain to living creatures, needless pain? It's needed. Very meaning. Good. Aaron says it's needed pain. I mean, the goat doesn't think what?
It's for sure literally a goat. It's not like your brother-in-law or something.
No, it's for sure. It's for sure literally a goat. Yeah, it's like for sure literally a goat. Yeah, and the goat goes off the cliff, and the goat. Yeah, and the answer is the first answer, and this has to be clear. It's almost like the question of you're not allowed to shave with a razor, right? Yet the Torah says when the Leviim were initiated into the service, their whole body was shaved with a razor. Now, how can they do that? The Torah says don't shave with a razor. So the answer is that who made the rule? Like I give you always the analogy in chess, you're not allowed to jump over other pieces. But your knight could jump over other pieces. Why? Because whoever played the game said that this is the exception to the rule. The same, why can't you shave with a razor? Why can't you cause pain to animals? The answer is you can't cause pain to animals, not because we're compassionate for the animals. You can't cause pain to animals because the Torah says you can't cause pain to the animals. So the same God that said don't cause pain, here he says push a goat off a cliff. Number one. Number two, what's going on here? Why are we pushing the goat off the cliff? Why are we pushing a goat off a cliff over here? And then normally you take animals, you sacrifice them, you bring them into the base of Mikdash, and you shech them. So the first thing you have to understand is it's not a sacrifice. That's the first thing. That's why it's not a sacrifice. You're taking it out to the wilderness and you're pushing it off of a cliff. It's not a sacrifice. Sacrifice is in the base of Mikdash by the Mizbeach. So it's not a sacrifice. What is happening here? So very, very briefly, then we're going to go into this a little more tomorrow. When a person does an Aveira, he creates a spiritual prosecutor. What are called mekatrigim. They're spiritual prosecutors. When a person does a mitzvah, he creates spiritual advocates. You have call it good angels and bad angels. Now, let's say you do tshuva. Say a person ate non-kosher food. And then the next day he did tshuva, he said al-chet, he gave some tzedakah, however, he promises he's never going to do it again. At that moment, the spiritual prosecutor has a piece of tape put over his mouth, so to speak. He can't prosecute at that moment. Then a few weeks later, the guy has a lapse, and he succumbed again to his temptation. He creates another prosecutor, plus the tape is pulled off the first one. Now he's got two spiritual prosecutors. Then he does tshuva. So they're all taped up again. Everybody, the two of them are taped up. And so on and so forth. On Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol loads, by putting his hands on the goat, he loads the goat up with all of the sins of all these spiritual prosecutors are put onto that goat. And then the goat is taken out to the wilderness and he's pushed off the cliff and the spiritual prosecutors are destroyed. That means up until that point, you could do tshuva, but they're pending. They're there. They're on the on-deck circle. Just don't get them, don't do anything to get that tape pulled off their mouth. On Yom Kippur, the slate is wiped clean. The goat goes off the cliff and the boat falls. He's wiping up the slate for the Jewish people is wiped clean. That's the ceremony over here with the goat. That's why the goat is pushed off a cliff. Okay, we have to stop. Rabbi Wiener is giving a talk in the main base medrash, and we're going to continue with this tomorrow, Mirza Hashem.